welcome back to another week of Education, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are back with another special guest. She's sitting right over here, and when you see Ella, you know that it's time for a Scream movie. So, say hi, Ella.
Hi.
This week we are back to watch Scream 4, the fourth movie in the Scream franchise, but the first one after a long break. They pumped out, Scream 1 was like 96, and Scream 2 was 97, and Scream 3 was 2000, and then they waited 11 years before they pumped out Scream 4. I think because Scream 3 left kind of a bad taste in everybody's mouth with the whole, you have a secret brother is the killer, and it just, people were like, okay, things are getting a little weird. Where now our killer's in California, he's like in Hollywood as opposed to Woodsboro. It just felt really, really like you're reaching. Like it was really desperate. But we are back with Scream 4, where our cast is back. Granted, all 11 years older. We still have Sidney Prescott, who is now a successful writer. You've got Dewey and Gail, who are now married. And Gail had to give up the big city life to come live in Woodsboro with now Sheriff Dewey. And that's really it, because we've been chipping away at our main characters throughout the series. So we're down to our main three. But we do have a whole slew of new people.
This is like, I feel like, which I don't know, but I feel like this was maybe like what do you call, like a coming out movie for a lot of people. I mean, we've got Hayden Panettiere.
Yeah.
Kristen Bell, which she was probably in things before this, but like Lucy Hale, the Shanae Grimes Beach,
Emma Roberts, Anna Paquin.
Yes. There is a good, solid cast here.
Yeah, there really is. They just hadn't done anything yet.
Right. I do. I really like this cast that they have. Besides Emma Roberts, I don't know. She's just kind of cringy to me.
Yeah, I'm not a big Emma Roberts fan. She's Julia Roberts' niece, which I mean, just Hollywood is like any industry. Like nepotism is going to show up.
Yeah.
And so Emma Roberts, I believe her dad is an actor, Eric Roberts, who's seriously been in 300 to 400 films. Like the guy is all over the place. But yeah, she's related to Julia Roberts somehow. So it's like you aren't this I was spotted at a McDonald's by a talent agent kind of story. It's like, no, you've been around the industry your whole life. In a lot of ways, like the acting world feels a lot like professional sports. Of I grew up in the locker room. I've been, so this is what my parents do, or this is what my aunts and uncles do, so this is what I'm going to do. We say that, because we even look at David Arquette, who plays Dewey, he comes from an entire family of professional actors, whose siblings have been in all kinds of things, and his dad's been in all kinds of things. It's it just is what it is. So yeah, but I agree with you on Emma Roberts. I'm not really, she's just kind of stale bread.
Yeah. If I have to watch it, I will, but yeah.
I'm not gonna turn it off, but I see Emma Roberts and I feel like if they were going to do the OC again, she would be somebody that would fit.
Yeah.
A little better than soap opera quality, but not quite mainstream film.
Speaking of the OC, so you watched the original, right?
The original OC? No.
Yeah. Oh.
No.
Okay, well, Deputy Haas.
Yes.
Adam
Brody.
I love him from that TV show, The OC, and actually he's the reason that I wanted to name my child Cohen, because his name is Seth Cohen in it. So when I saw him in this movie, I was like, oh, I love him.
And it's it just shows you how packed this cast is, because Deputy Haas had really nothing to do. Like,
No, and Deputy Perkins,
yeah,
he's
Anthony
in the
Anderson.
he's from Blackish. I'm
Yeah,
watching that right now. Like, I like him.
yeah. You know,
So
Mary
yeah,
McDonnell is a successful actress. Like Marley Shelton, she's been in a lot of stuff. Like, yeah, this is a stacked
yeah,
cast. Um, but we get we get four of them out of the way right away.
yeah, we do.
Of the stacked cast, Anna Paquin, who she was in the X-Men movies as Rogue. She was on True Blood. Like, she's one of those actresses that, like, if you're in that universe of fandom, then you're gonna be like, oh my god, she's the greatest
Hmm.
actress ever. You know, but it's like we get Shanae Grimes and Lucy Hale right away, almost like a vibe of, because remember, this movie takes place um, like 15 years after the original. So
Yeah,
we're looking at an entirely different generation of film goers where Scream 4 just might be their first Scream movie.
yeah,
And so they're watching it, and really what we're watching is we're watching the intro to Scream.
hmm,
Phone calls, you're at home. These two play up a little bit more. They're talking about some movies that they like, you know, like it's their, well, shocker, they get killed. Um,
exactly.
you know, it's like that's going to happen. But really what throws us for a loop is they get killed, and then like the title screen for Stab 6 drops. And we're like,
Yeah,
oh. And we see Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell watching the movie. So we're like, oh,
yeah,
you got us. Like, you tricked us. Your introduction to this film was actually the intro to a movie that two of our characters were
hmm,
watching. Like, oh, okay. And that made sense because these two are sitting on the couch, and Anna Paquin's just going nuts about how stupid decisions they make. She gets up to get some popcorn, comes sits back down. She's still just griping about just how dumb the actors or how dumb the characters are in these movies. And then Kristen Bell whips out a butcher knife and stabs her in the gut.
You know, sometimes watching movies with people, I mean, I'm not saying I want to stab anyone, but sometimes it is. It's like, just shut up.
Right.
Just shut up and watch it.
Yeah. And
Like
that,
when I I love when she said that. Like, she
yeah,
stabbed her and she's like, "Will you just be quiet and watch it?" Like,
right. Yeah.
yes,
And
please.
she's spitting blood out, stabs her again. And then the title sequence of Stab 7 drops. So we've been duped twice now that
Hmm.
we aren't watching our plot line. We are watching introductions to two of the Stab. Because again, the Stab franchise, the movie within the movies, has been going on since Scream 2. And it's like we took some time off. So now they're up to Stab 7. Um,
Yeah.
and so it got us, didn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, it you know, kind of threw us for like, oh yeah. So now I guess we're watching our movie. Like, after two
Yeah.
false intros, we're finally into Scream
After that,
4.
I didn't know if it was the movie or not. I didn't know if they're gonna do that again.
Yeah, just two
Right.
straight hours of looping all the Stab intros.
I thought maybe it was like, oh, we're introducing the Scream Killer like right off the bat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll
which
know.
would have been unique.
Would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. To be like, oh, like we see that she's the killer. Now she's going to be floating around in the cast the whole movie, and we know what no one else knows. Like that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no. We're back now in our plot, and so where we are is back in Woodsboro. We do get two of our characters in our third kind of opening because
Yeah.
we actually come to two characters that are watching Stab 7. So they watch the intro to Stab 6 and the intro to Stab 7 because they're actually watching that movie. So we got Jenny Randall and Marnie Cooper. Just two whatevers. There are two actual teens. So it feels like the third time we might be duped. And so they get phone call. It's your standard cat and mouse ghost face thing. They get phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. One of them actually reveals something that we hadn't seen yet, because this franchise has never had a smartphone.
Yeah.
You know, with the last one coming out in 2000, there weren't any iPhones or smartphones yet. And so one of them like goes upstairs to do something. The other one's a little creeped out, and she calls her. And she even comments she's got a Ghostface app on her phone. So now you can download a voice changer. And so that's kind of a cool prospect, because every voice changer we've seen thus far has been a physical hold it in front of your mouth.
Yeah.
But now they can just do it over the phone. And so that really brings in a new element to this movie, because all these kids have phones. So now instantly everybody's a suspect, even when they don't necessarily wouldn't have been in the previous film. So they're killed, like dead. Like that's just how it works. But really the main through line of the movie is Sydney's return to Woodsboro, which is like the first time she's been back since all this happened.
Yeah, she's promoting her self-help.
Right, yeah. And she's got a publicist, which is a useless character, really.
Yeah.
And so just somebody to build into, are they a suspect or are they going to be a victim? Mm-hmm. But yeah, Sydney's back to promote, like you said, her self-help film, like Out of the Darkness.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a flip, because Gail lives in Woodsboro and has given up being a reporter because of the success of her book. So now she's trying to write books because there's nothing to do in Woodsboro. And now Sydney is the successful author coming back to Woodsboro, and Gail's trapped in It's kind of I like that kind of dramatic element to it, because we've seen Sydney and Gail as opposing forces in the first one that eventually came together. And then they stayed together through the next two movies. And now, because of their distance, there's not any personal jealousy there, but you could tell Gail's got some animosity.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm trapped in your town and you're out being a successful writer. Mm-hmm. We see Gail.
Poor Gail, she just kind of gets a short stick of it all.
Yeah, she really does. Well, we see Gail at the computer, like she's trying to write a book, and she just can't. Which, honestly, the line that she wrote, I thought was like a great opening line to a book. So, I'm like, that would be a fun opening line. Like, I have no idea what to write. Like, oh, cool. And then, you're reading the rest of the book, so you obviously get over it. So one of those girls' phones was missing, and the police have pinged the location, and it turns out it's in the trunk of Sydney's rental car.
Yeah. So they shut down the book signing.
Right.
They shut everything down, and Sydney is like the suspect.
Yeah, it was like a bloody knife, the cell phone.
Yeah, and like a picture.
Yeah. And of course, like, and it appears that like Sydney doesn't have her books in boxes. Apparently she just has them stacked nakedly in the trunk of her car. Like, I thought that was a little goofy, but so now we got to flip that. Okay. There hasn't been any murders in Woodsboro since Sydney left. Sydney's back. There's now murders, and she's like the prime suspect. Mm-hmm. So now she has to stay in town, which is convenient for our plot, because she's the driving force of the entire franchise. Then we spend a lot of time with the others, the kids.
Yeah.
Because
Sydney's family.
Yeah. What's a Scream movie without teenagers?
Right.
We've tried that. Like, Scream 3 didn't have teens. And honestly, I could see from a marketing standpoint that may be why it was less successful. Scream 1 was a hit with the teens because it had teens in it. Scream 2 was a hit because college isn't too far off. But then Scream 3 was completely adult. Yeah. And so it didn't hit as well. So let's go back to the kids. And that's what they did. We meet her cousin Jill, conveniently named Jill Roberts, played by Emma Roberts. Got to make it easy for these kids. Yeah. She's dealing with what many teenage girls deal with, a cheating ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, and she's struggling because he is like, no, I want you back, and smart enough, she does not go back.
Right.
But yeah, they're riding to school, her and
Olivia.
Olivia, and what is Hayden Panettiere's name?
Kirby.
Kirby. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And they get these phone calls. Well, Kirby doesn't, but the other two do.
Right.
Olivia and Jill. And just like, what's your favorite scary movie? Blah blah blah. Just the basic Ghostface call.
Yeah.
And so they get in. I don't remember. Does Dewey get them first, or do they go to Dewey? How do they end up talking about the phone calls?
I think they go to him.
Okay.
Because he would have had no reason to go to them.
Yeah. Just kind of talking about, like, telling about the phone calls. Sydney's like, yeah, like, that's, and it just kind of, it's just like a filler point, I feel like. Sydney is staying over with Jill and her aunt, and is this where it was? I'm all jumbled up. I'm like Ella. I think I've forgotten everything now. There's just so much.
Well, and honestly, there's too many characters.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many characters given something to do, because we also meet Deputy Hicks here, who has a big crush on Dewey.
Yeah.
Makes him lemon bars, and tries to get in Gail's way any way, shape, or form she can.
Yeah.
So they give her too much to do. They actually give Perkins and Haas too much to do, because again, these actors, Adam Brody and Anthony Anderson, like, they're known actors.
Right.
And so you can't just shoehorn them in there and give them nothing. So it's like everybody feels like they've got lines. So you've got so many people talking. I do want to comment real quick on Anthony Anderson's character, Perkins. His actual name in the movie is Anthony Perkins. Now, way back in Scream 1, we talked about how Billy Loomis, the Loomis part of his name is because of the love interest in Hitchcock's Psycho. His name is Sam Loomis. Now, they named the psychiatrist in Halloween Sam Loomis as the same homage to that character. So we got Billy Loomis, which is, fun little, like, oh, Loomis, I remember that name from Psycho. Well, Anthony Perkins, Deputy Perkins here, Norman Bates, the killer in Psycho, the actor's name is Anthony Perkins.
Okay.
So it's another, like, hey, let's do another Hitchcock throwback.
Yeah.
And so it's completely useless trivia, but that's what I'm good at, is completely useless trivia. And then, of course, Deputy Haas, his first name is Ross. So his actual name is Ross Haas. So there you go. But yeah, you're right, though. There's just so much going on. Like, Gail's got writer's block. So because of her writer's block, which I get this plot point of, like, well, we need to give Gail something to do. So let's make sure she can't do her job. She can't write. Mm-hmm. So now she's like, this is what I do. I'm going to help Dewey investigate these murders. Right?
Which, and then she started just spawning again.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to help Dewey investigate these murders, to which Hicks tries to get in the way. And Dewey's like, we got this. He tucks the rug out from under, too. And she's like, no. So she, again, just kind of goes rogue and does her own. But you're right. So we got Sydney is staying with Jill and her aunt. Olivia lives next door. And Kirby comes over to Jill's. So we've got Kirby and Jill in the same bedroom together, just hanging out.
Yeah. Sydney's like off on her own.
Right. In the spare bedroom that everybody has. Everyone's got a fully furnished spare bedroom in their home.
Yeah.
And Jill and Kirby get a call from Ghostface. And they're like they're watching Shaun of the Dead. They're just hanging out. But yeah, like, and there's officers parked outside, and they get a phone call, and Ghostface is telling them like exactly what they're watching, exactly
Yeah.
what's going on, and he tells them, "I'm in check the closet. I'm in the closet." And so,
And I do like this because Kirby's kind of been like this bad girl, kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm not scared of you.
Right,
Like,
she-
I like horror movies,
Yeah.
like, whatever. And then, like, she's actually scared. It's like,
yeah, because well,
It's like-
it's in her face now. Like,
yeah, it's like in the classroom and it's like, we need an adult. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, shoot, I
Yeah.
am the adult. Like,
Yeah. Or when you get kids mouthing off in front of their friends, and then you
Yeah.
pull them aside, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay,
yeah.
I got real."
uh-huh.
So they do. They whip open the closet, and there's nobody in there. And so they call Ghostface out for his lie. Ghostface like, "I didn't say I was in your closet."
Yeah, and we just see him jump out and go ham on Olivia.
Yeah, they, like yeah, throwing her all
Yeah.
over the bedroom. Like it's Stab City next door. Sydney puts two together real quick. Like Jill and Kirby are just screaming. Sydney's like, she does. Which now I can't say we now know Sydney's not a suspect because again, we've seen the Scream movies. We know there's always two killers.
Right.
But she's obviously not this killer. So she takes off over to Olivia's house. Long story short, they find her. She's dead. And Ghostface takes off when the police show up. Like Sydney and Ghostface have a knockdown, drag out fight.
Yeah.
And Sydney's
Yeah.
holding her own because she's sick of it. But Ghostface flees out the back door. The cops come in through the front door. Hicks shows up, checks the perimeter. Well, Hicks is one of those that shows up when nobody knew she was coming. So now, like, oh, Deputy Hicks is here.
Is she the blonde one?
Yeah, she's the blonde one.
Okay. There are too many names.
Yeah, I know. There's
Yeah.
a lot of names.
It's very hard to keep track of them.
And so, she shows up, but Ghostface gets away. But not before Olivia's killed. And so Sydney's got to go to the hospital because she's got a cut on her arm. And she overhears Rebecca, her publicist, which is, again, a useless character.
Yeah.
But she overhears her excitement about these murders because that's going to boost book sales.
Hey, I mean, which it's unfortunate that they died, but as a publicist, you're just doing your job.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah, it's like it is obviously taboo to talk about that, but
Yes.
it's unfortunately there are industries in this world where one does get, I won't say excited, but they benefit from things like
Correct.
this. I mean,
Yeah.
when we ran the flower shop there for a couple of years, we were never excited that someone local died ever,
Right.
but it always did benefit the flower
Mhm.
shop. I mean, our business
Yes.
wise was
Yeah.
we would get called and we would do the funeral spray, and then people would. It was a lucrative thing. Again, obviously, we were never excited to make our money that way, but
Mhm.
it's unfortunately how it happened.
That's just the way of life.
Yeah. So Sydney fires her publicist, who then gets murdered in a parking garage. Like,
Yeah.
my issue with a lot of these movies, especially this one, is the Scream movies try to base their killings and their murders, I feel like, in a little bit more reality, as opposed to Michael Myers and Jason and
Mhm.
Freddy as your main, or even Chucky. Like, we know Chucky's a doll, so what? It's like it's not real. Like, instantly, it's not real. Freddy
Mhm.
haunts you in your dreams. Instantly, not real. Jason dies at the end of every movie and then is resuscitated at the beginning of the next one. Clearly, it's
Yeah.
not real. But the Scream movies at least try to base it in, like, physics. Like,
Yeah.
like you're not going to see one murder teleport to another spot. Somebody's going to be
Right.
breath or whatever. It just threw me off, like, how, like, this murder in particular, there was no reason for Ghostface to know that Rebecca was going to be in the parking garage at that time.
No.
Like, for this murder in particular, it just felt like, let's introduce a publicist so that we can kill them later.
Mhm.
And when I feel like when a lot of movies do that, if they're doing it too loosey-goosey, you do get these kind of don't fit the narrative kills. And this was one of them.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like Rebecca served
Kind
no
of.
purpose. She was completely forgettable.
Right.
And yet we put her in so we can have another murder.
Yeah.
Gail's still going rogue. There's two,
Yeah, she's
yeah.
she's got some partners
Yeah,
now.
there's two people we haven't seen yet, and there's a high school's got some some film club, and one guy who's apparently got the greatest battery pack on a camera I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Because he live streams his entire life,
everything.
and the school lets him do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like no problems, because you never see a teacher, you never see an administrator. But she talks to Charlie and Robbie, the resident film nuts, about helping them out. Like, hey, you're live streaming all the time. You've got access to cameras, and I'll be glad to come talk to your movie club.
Yeah, and
Would-
and unfortunately, they're like, "What about Sidney
Right?
Prescott?"
Can you get us Sydney?
Such a slap in the face.
Which-
like,
Sydney did, like,
yeah,
which I thought was kind of odd, but whatever. And so basically these two play the role of Randy,
mm-hmm.
because Scream 1 had Randy. Scream 2 had Randy, but he was killed. Scream 3 had a videotape Randy made before he was killed. So these two play our Randy.
Yeah,
One of them, Rory Culkin, the dark-haired kid, he is the younger brother of Macaulay Culkin from the Home Alone movies.
wow, they look nothing alike.
No, they don't. But yeah, they're brothers.
Wow.
There's multiple Culkin kids that are in Hollywood, just not as successful as Macaulay
Mhm.
Culkin was as a kid, but he's not working and they still are. So,
Yeah,
so one of them, Charlie, I don't know which one's which, but Charlie has an idea that
Charlie's the dark hair.
Charlie's the dark
Yeah.
haired one. So he's got this idea that I think the killer is following the rules of like horror remakes as opposed to horror films, which Scream 4 kind of is a remake.
yeah,
Teenagers dying in Woodsboro. Like, there you go. And so that's their plan. Gail and Sydney are there, and so the boys are talking about every year they host a party called Stabathon, where they marathon watch all 7 Stab movies. So Gail and Sydney are like, oh, I bet that's where they're going to strike next, because these two are detectives now.
yeah,
So Gail does sneak into the party, and Ghostface gets her.
Yeah.
She put up the camera.
Yeah, she's putting up the cameras. We get kind of this cool live feed, which is pretty amazing how far the cameras have come, because Gail did this in Scream
I know.
Gail did this in Scream 1. She took the camera, hit it in the party scene,
Mm-hmm.
and then her cameraman was watching the live feed out in the van, but it was delayed by about
Yeah,
30 seconds. These apparently have no latency whatsoever.
no,
Like, it is. I'm surprised these cameras don't show you what's going to happen. Like,
yeah, they were pretty good quality.
yeah. And so, she's stashing these cameras in the barn to record the footage, and Ghostface comes in. He starts covering the camera.
Yeah, they're all just turned over.
Right.
And the last one, it was neat because he just pans across his face
Yeah,
before it goes black.
yeah. So
And
we
it's
know. So we know who's doing it.
Yeah,
At first, I thought there was 4 since she put them in different places.
Oh, for Ghostface.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been
Because she put them all in different places, so I don't know how Ghostface got to all of them that quickly.
magic.
yeah.
Ghostface has magic. That's why he wears a cloak like a wizard. And yeah, so we get, was it Dewey? Yeah, Dewey showed up.
Yes, and he's watching her as she went back in.
Yeah, why Dewey showed up at this party knowing Gail was going to be there, I don't know.
Yeah, because I feel like she was hiding all this from
Yeah,
him.
yeah, she's been doing it all on the side. So he shows up, happens to look in the car, happens to see the live feed that Gail, as she's putting a camera down, like we see and Dewey sees Ghostface approaching
Yeah.
her from behind. Of course, then Dewey from outside the barn by the car
No, Gail!
yells, Gail, look out!
Uh,
I don't think she heard you, do. But yeah, so he runs into the barn just as Ghostface stabs Gail in the shoulder.
It's kind of
Mhm.
like one of the last ones where it's like the glass that doesn't make sound, where she was watching him.
Oh, right, yeah, like
Yeah.
in Scream
That's what
3
it
with
reminds
this.
me of.
Yeah.
That's good with the soundproof glass. And so Dewey fires off a shot, misses, Ghostface runs off, but Gail's stabbed. Jill's still at home. Haas and Perkins are parked outside. Ghostface gets to them in record time. So Haas and Perkins are murdered. Perkins has what might be one of the most unbelievable death scenes in the entire franchise,
yeah.
where he gets stabbed point blank in the forehead by a very long knife, and then gets out of the car, talks a little bit, and then collapses dead.
Yeah. What?
I've never been stabbed in the brain, but I just have the sneaking suspicion that you probably die a little quicker than that.
Yeah, like he must have just hit it right where, it splits.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like where there's nothing too important there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where I was like, no, Cohen.
I know, yeah. You're like, my boy Adam. Adam's dead. So yeah, there's just this movie's too busy.
Yes.
I mean,
this one was just, it was very like, it kept you interested because it was just like boom, 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 boom. It happened so quickly.
Right.
But it's like, I feel like we've gone over so much detail and we've still missed so much detail.
oh, yeah, there's too many people.
It
Yeah.
would have made sense to have more than two Ghostface.
Well, they would have almost needed more than two Ghostface
Yeah.
to accomplish everything they're accomplishing. But I mean, when we go back to the original Scream, you're really looking at Billy Stu, Sydney, whatever her blonde friend's name is, I forget, and Randy. Like, you got 5 teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, you've got some tertiary people, but really nobody else dies outside of that crew. I mean, Dewey and Gail as adults, but you've got 5 teens. Scream 2, when she's in college, you're looking at her and her black friend, and then her boyfriend and Mickey. You're looking at, and Randy. So again, you're looking at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Scream 3, it's really just Dewey, Gail, and Sydney out in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then you've also got the actors who were playing Sydney, Dewey, and Gail. So yes, you've got a little bit larger cast, but you're still dealing with the same characters. You just have 2 versions of them. And then you get here, and you've, like you said, you've got your main 3, Dewey, Gail, Sydney, but then you've got 3 other police officers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different teenagers. Like, there's just way too many people in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all given something to do. Because we haven't talked about Trevor in forever.
No.
And that's kind of Jill's through line, is Trevor's like, just come back to me. She's like, no, you cheated on me, but just come back to me. It's like, it's because it's boring, but it's just a reason to get Trevor in there. Like, this movie feels like, let's start at the end of the maze and work our way back.
Yeah.
Like, let's start with our, let's write this at the end and then work through reasons why everybody needs to be here.
Yeah.
Sydney gets a phone call that Jill's not home. Ghostface calls her and say Jill left for Kirby's. So the cops are dead. Jill's not home. She's at Kirby's. And then Ghostface attacks Sydney and her aunt.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, stabs her right through.
Right, yeah. Like which I thought was, I mean, yeah, like the mom sits down and like
holds the
it
door.
was smart. Like she braces herself
Yes.
against the door and the banister. She's like, they're not opening this door. And Ghostface just stabs her right through the mail slot.
Yeah.
Which, like, okay, hey, yeah, I get it. And so, yeah, Aunt's dead. Like, Jill's mom's dead.
Yeah.
And so, again, like, we're at Kirby's house, where we have Jill, Kirby, Charlie, Robbie, and Trevor. 5 characters that, because we have so many characters, none of them have really, like, we don't know any of them.
There's not been enough development.
No, we don't
with
care.
them.
We don't, honestly, I didn't. I don't care about them.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken 3 movies to get to know Sidney Dewey and Gail. I care about those 3.
Yes.
But I also know that Gail's stab in the shoulder didn't kill her. Like, I know that.
Right.
Because
right.
every murder in this franchise, if they die, you know they're dead. Like, you see buckets of blood and violence. And this was just a stab in the shoulder. We know Gail's fine. But it's like, we've got this secondary plot, and we still have 5 teenagers. Like, it's just so many. So they're all at Kirby's house after the stab-a-thon. Robbie is drunk, and he's debating whether or not he's gay. Because his theory is gay people don't get killed in horror films.
Yeah.
And so he's not sure if he's gay or not. And it doesn't matter because Ghostface kills him anyway.
Exactly. He tried not to.
Right. Not before Robbie, who's been stabbed multiple times, still crawls his way to the front porch.
Uh-huh.
Sydney shows up because she's there to get Jill. Like, apparently Sydney doesn't care about the other 4 teens.
No.
I'm just here for Jill. Ghostface is chasing them around. Sydney calls Dewey, so let's get more people here.
Mm-hmm.
So Jill still hasn't been found. Like, she took off after Ghostface's attack.
At this part, I thought it was, what's his name?
Charlie.
No.
Trevor. Yeah, you thought it was
I
Trevor.
thought it was him because in the first one, this one reminded me of the first one, it was Billy. Because he, like, got mad and stuff, then he was it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was him.
Yeah, you did. Kirby or Charlie's been tied up because they've been flirting off and on. Charlie's had a thing for Kirby for years. And it isn't until the events of this movie that Kirby finally starts recognizing him. And Charlie's been tied up outside a la Steve in the first Scream movie.
Yep.
Casey Becker's boyfriend.
How did you remember his name?
Because I'm a nerd.
I forgot.
I'm a nerd. If I were to ask you like Demon Slayer or Heartstopper's characters, you would know all of those. So Kirby comes out and she frees Charlie, who's been taped up, and we finally get a reveal who part of our murders are, as Charlie just stabs Kirby in the gut.
And it's so, like, he's like, you've had no interest in me until now. Right. Like so unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. It's also really not fair to, like, you've already stabbed her. And now you're putting on her that had you liked me earlier, I would have spared you. Like,
what?
Like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't make any sense either. Like, that's what I got out of this is too little too late. So it's like, if Kirby did like you, would you have then joined up with our next killer reveal? Like that's the trajectory of his life as a teen, is like
all because Kirby didn't like him.
If Kirby would have given me the time of day, I wouldn't have become this murderous teen. Like, that's a stretch. So we know Charlie's the killer, a killer. Yeah. And we're really down to Sydney, Jill. We don't know where Trevor went, and Charlie. So the second Ghostface steps out, Charlie's got Sydney held at knife point, and the second Ghostface steps out, and it's Jill, Sydney's relation.
Because earlier she had like gotten a call, and the Ghostface said something about family.
Yeah, because it was something about I remember what it was.
Something about her dog.
Right, yeah. At one point, I was like, "Does that mean the dog is the killer? Like the dog at the end of Scream 3?" But yeah, so and Ella did say that at one point she goes, "They're doing a much better job shutting doors in this movie than they used to." Although it didn't help out the mom who still got stabbed through a closed door.
Yeah.
So Jill comes out, and Jill's basically blaming Sydney for all this.
Yeah, she's jealous gone rage.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, this stuff happens in real life, I feel like. You get so jealous of someone that it just angers you.
Yeah. Jill went to the extreme.
She did.
Do you know what it's like to be related to you in this town? And I'm thinking, Woodsboro didn't seem tiny. Like, they had a huge high school.
Yeah.
They have a police force. Like, 15 years later, everybody's still talking about Sydney surviving those murders. Like that. Like, there's stuff that happens in our small town that 3 weeks later, everybody forgets about.
Exactly. And it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Apparently in Woodsboro, it's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
So she's basically like, look, I've planned all this out. I'm one of the murderers, but I'm going to be the new you. I'm going to be the survivor of the Ghostface killers. Yeah. And this is where they reveal Trevor, because they're like, we are going to pin this on Trevor. Mm-hmm. So Jill kills Trevor and then spends some time, doctoring up, making sure her prints are off the gun and, things like that. And then she turns on Charlie. Yeah. Which really surprised Charlie.
Like, it was supposed to just be a stab in the shoulder.
Right.
Like, and she just goes right for his heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, this was kind of a cool twist. Even though this movie's very clunky, this was kind of cool because this is the first time where we haven't really seen the Ghostface duo working together. Right. Like, this really...
she's just straight using him this whole time.
Even gives him a kiss. Like...
Yeah.
You're falling into my trap as well. So she kills him, and she's going to pin all this on Trevor, who's, again, already dead. But she's cut his binds off. She's, wiped her prints off of things. The one thing that bothered me, though, just because, is she never... Like, she wiped off all the fingerprints, like, on the gun that she killed Trevor with. Mm-hmm. But then never put the gun back in his hand.
I know. She, like, slid it over to Sydney.
So it's like, all of these murder weapons have no prints on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then she stabs Sydney. Like, she gets her in the gut. And then we see kind of a fun scene because the house hasn't been ransacked enough, where we see her, like, basically just start beating herself up.
Yeah,
like,
it's
like throws herself
it's a lot.
She throws herself into I don't know, like, we've got pictures hanging up in our house, and I guess I underestimate the amount of breakable glass hanging on my walls. But she throws herself into this, like, framed picture, which then shatters glass. She gets cuts all over her face. Throws herself backwards into a glass table. Like, she's basically using her body to make it look like she survived a battle. Then she, like, shoulders herself. Like, it was kind of brutal to watch, putting that knife in,
it was
slamming herself against the wall. And then lays herself down right next to Sydney in the same pose that Sydney's in. Like, we know Sydney's not dead. Like, we know she's not dead. Because we've seen murder in this franchise, and you just stabbed her in the stomach. Is she hurt? Of course she's hurt. But she's not dead.
Right.
And so Dewey and the police finally show up, and they take Sydney and Jill to the hospital. Our movie's not over. Like, it could have been over right now, and it would have been interesting to see how they play into a sequel if they made one.
Yeah.
So Dewey, again, has Jill's story works. The events of this movie work.
Yeah.
Dewey is like your survivor. You know, Jill's playing the role perfectly. She's asking how Sydney's doing, and Dewey's like, she's alive.
Yeah. We think she's gonna pull through.
She's in ICU, but yeah, she'll pull through. They must have taken them to Woodsboro General, where they do not employ doctors.
Yeah.
They just have a single nurse in the entire hospital.
Uh-huh.
Jill then goes on a rampage because, well, this doesn't work if Sydney's still alive.
No.
She asked about Gail, and she said they would have like matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gave it away.
And then Dewey like ran back because Gail said, "Well, how would she know that I had got cut?
Yeah,
she wasn't even there."
Yeah. So Gail is still the brains behind the operation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remembered that, but I forgot to talk about it. But you're absolutely right, Ella, that Jill, like, we'll have matching scars.
Yeah.
To which Dewey again was like, "Oh yeah, you will." You're right. You know, but yeah, Gail's like, "How does she know where I got stabbed?" It's because she's the one that stabbed you, Gail. Like, that's why.
Yeah.
So Jill's taking off for Sydney's room, which there's not a nurse's station anywhere.
No.
Because Jill rips her IV out, takes off the heart monitor. Not a single sensor goes off. No alarms go off at all.
And the one sensor that does go off, it's like beep, 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 and then it stops. Yeah. It's like, oh.
They've got all the lights off everywhere in this hospital. They're saving energy. There's no nurses anywhere. Like, Jill makes it from her room to a whole nother unit, like ICU. Doesn't come across one medical professional. Not a one. Goes into Sydney's room, and she's ready to, she's going to kill Sydney.
Yeah.
Grabs a bedpan. She's basically going to beat her with this bedpan. Apparently, Gail's kept in an entire other wing of this hospital.
Yeah.
As Dewey's on a foot chase. So Sydney and Jill get into a fight. Dewey, Gail, and Judy show up. Because Dewey now put two and two together. Jill takes Dewey down with the bedpan. And
she takes him down pretty good too.
Yeah. But again, there's still just too many characters.
Yeah.
Like, Hicks and Gail show up, but now Jill's got Dewey's gun and shoots Hicks. Like, they go hiding, and she just shoots Hicks. And holds Gail at gunpoint, but not before Sydney can quietly turn on the defibrillator.
Yeah.
Yeah, she asked her what her final words would be.
Yeah, because Ella was like, "What's that?" So I was explaining what a defibrillator does, and cranks it up because.
Yeah, she doesn't leave it low.
Well, and you can tell from the arm angle that because Sydney's like, she got stabbed in the gut, and this is just where Joe kept attacking it, kneeing her in the gut, punching her in the gut, like ripping that wound open again. So Sydney's operating all of this from the ground. You could tell because she's like reaching her arm up. So she knows where all the buttons and all the knobs are on this defibrillation machine, despite not being able to see it. So good for Sydney. I'm being a jerk here. I'm kind of picking it apart a little bit, but some of it's like, that's like, they've done so well at this franchise, and there's some of the choices here are just too convenient.
Yeah.
Sydney has the paddles ready. Jill, like you said, asks Gail what your final words are. Gail says clear. Puts her, basically sends the full voltage of this defibrillator right through her brain. Mm-hmm. Fries Jill. Sydney shoots her in the heart anyway. Dewey calls in the rest of the police, and then kind of a cool take because nobody knew what happened inside the hospital. All these reporters are outside the hospital, and they're all still, because all they know is that Jill was the sole survivor of this attack. So Jill's getting the recognition she wanted. She's getting the attention that she craved, but unfortunately, she's not alive to take advantage of it.
No.
And that is somehow the shortest movie in the Scream franchise, despite feeling...
I was going to say, the longest.
Just so much going on. It will be another 11 years before they make a Scream movie after this one. This movie did okay. I mean, it more than doubled its money.
Yeah.
But the next Scream movie after this is 2022 Scream 5. Again, with an entirely revamped cast, 11 years later. We get Jenna Ortega is in that one. There's just a lot going on in Scream 5. I have seen it. I don't remember it either. I've only seen it the one time, but it's I remember it being better than this one.
Yeah.
So, I guess let's go ahead and grade this sucker.
Ella, you want to go first?
Yeah, you go first, kiddo. What do you give it a grade? Courtney and I aren't ready to grade yet. We got some time.
I don't know.
What are you gonna grade it? I know normally you would want us to grade it so that you could base your grade off of our grade, but
maybe a B because it was really confusing at some points and it was just really busy.
There you go. B for busy. That works. So what are you giving it, Courtney?
This has been my least favorite Scream movie so far. Just because, I feel like there was in the beginning, they said that Saw was awful because there was no character development. And I'm like, there was no character development here.
No.
I'm going to go with the C+, just because I didn't feel connected to anyone. And the only person I did feel connected to was from a different TV show.
Right, yeah.
So, I don't know. This one just did not do it for me. I didn't love it. And I'm to the point where, I've really loved the first three, but how long does the franchise go on where someone else just takes over Ghostface?
Welcome to horror fandom. People have been asking that question for years. Not only about this,
I'm struggling.
Yeah,
because it's the first three were so good, and they all had legit reasons as to why the killer was the killer.
Right.
I'm getting justice for my kid. I'm doing this. And now it's just all right, you're a jealous cousin.
Well, and here's a part I just thought of. I mean, Jill's a high school student. So even if she's a senior in high school, she was 3 when all this stuff went down.
Yeah.
So she doesn't remember Sydney surviving any of this stuff.
No.
She doesn't remember any of this happening to her cousin or whatever. So it's all hearsay. When did Jill become jealous of Sydney?
Exactly.
Because even I can definitely understand it's still being newsworthy a couple of years later because of all of the murders going on in Woodsboro, and especially because Sydney survived another attack in college and another attack, there hasn't been any Scream stuff going on for, we'll call it a decade maybe.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know how old Sydney was when she was out in Hollywood.
I don't either.
But I know it's been 15 years since Woodboro had the attacks. So, okay, so Sydney survived. I mean, I know she's out of college. So let's even call it 8 years. Right, that maybe all of Sydney's events that happened, in the first 3 Scream movies, let's say they took place over a span of 8 years. Okay, from high school through college to now she's your crisis care, your crisis hotline lady. We'll call it 8 years. All this is going on. That still would be if Jill was 18, which she's not. But if Jill was 18 years old, that still would be 7 years prior. So, all of this would have happened when Jill, finished when maybe Jill was 11.
Hmm.
So there, I just wonder, like how much, if Sydney's never been back to Woodsboro, then why is there still so much fanfare? It seems,
Yeah.
like you said, there was justifiable purposes for everybody else's actions in the previous three movies. And this one, I could understand Jill's theory, but the time frame just doesn't line up. Like, you're too
No.
young to remember it happening. And it's been so long since it stopped happening that, like, for 7 years she's just been the talk of the town that she's never come back to. Like, it seems a real stretch.
Yeah.
It does. It just seems a real stretch. And then, like, to not show any of that, like, to I'm sorry, high school girls cannot put drama away.
No.
But yet Jill's been living with all of this animosity and jealousy, and
Yeah.
nobody knows about it.
No one.
Like, no, she's got two great friends in Olivia and Kirby, and neither one of them have a clue that she's jealous of her cousin. Like, we know that our kids deal with stuff at home that they don't bring to school, but still, if it happens regularly, some of that stuff does slip in to the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Not Jill. She is a master at her emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not buying it. So yeah, you're going C plus. I'm gonna give it a C. Like, it's vanilla. Like, it's fine. They made another one. This actually, the guy who wrote the first three and the guy who directed the first three, Kevin Williamson, did all the writing of all the Scream movies up to this point, and Wes Craven has directed all four of them. But this was the final film Wes Craven directed before he died. But again, we're talking 15, 16 years after the first one. Like, I feel like this movie in some ways is like when you have an opportunity to have a really good comeback, but you don't think about it for like an hour later, but now it's too late. Well, this movie is like they showed up and made that comeback comment anyway, and it just doesn't fit. Like, it's just too late. Like I said, I'm gonna give it a C. I love Wes Craven as a director, but this movie it's not the worst movie we've watched.
Right.
But when it's the disappointing sibling to the rest of the family. There's just so much going on, so much, and it's hard to figure out like what they're trying to say, like what's the point they're trying to make. But whatever. But we do, like I said, we do get another one 11 years later. But again, it's a whole nother generation of kids, that they're going to be coming out with. They're going to be pandering to. The writing did get better. Like, I remember Scream 5 being pretty solid. It's a solid film.
So Scream Queens, have you watched that at all?
I have not.
I wonder if that's like a spin-off of...
I don't think so. I know there was a Scream the TV show. Scream Queens,
because it has Emma Roberts in it,
right? But it also has Jamie Lee Curtis, who of course from Halloween.
Yeah.
But no, that one. This is a semi-anthology series that centers on characters being terrorized by a serial killer in different locations, including a university and hospital. So no, I don't think that does. But I know there was a Scream the TV show. I think so.
I think there is, because it's on Netflix.
Yeah, Scream the TV series that came out in 2015.
Okay.
It lasted 29 episodes. But I never watched it. The mask doesn't look the same. Like, they're playing off the... It could be good. It's got a 7 out of 10 on IMDb, but I almost feel like it's an attempt to be like, you really love Scream that much? Okay, well, we'll give you some more. In a way that like the Marvel movies and even Star Wars are going on like Disney Plus. Like, I love Marvel and I love Star Wars. I don't have time to digest every piece that you keep throwing, every show, every cartoon. I just don't. And so Scream tried, I think, with that show. Like, we'll do a couple seasons of it, I guess, and it might be really good. But I don't know. I'm a film guy. I'm not a TV guy. I like a good TV show, but I'm just not a, never been a follower, despite being a horror fan, never been a big fan of horror television. I just feel like if it's on TV, you're limited in what you can do. And so, what lesson do you have to pull from this one? I think Gray's trying to get your attention back there.
Okay, first off, they're on the counter.
I don't know where it's going.
Okay, just go sit down. Go sit down. Lord help us all.
Yeah.
The lesson that I think, I don't know, the lesson I want to say from this is like, when you have a word count on a paper, don't try and just add words in. Like, you know, and maybe this goes for teachers. Like, sometimes I feel like things can be done in a shorter amount of time or a shorter period of words. Like, don't make the word count 1,000 words when it can be done in 600.
Right. And don't downplay the kid that can deliver a tight, full manuscript or, you know, whatever writing.
Yes.
If they, you know, because I've said that, I've championed that for years, you know, of when I was in the classroom teaching reading or teaching English, as well as just helping kids with their stuff. I don't like a word count.
I don't either, because it's too much. Like, I feel as if less words, I can get my point across. That's that. But when you have like a 750 word count, I'm like, in the year of 1967,
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, we don't need that.
A good writer. Now I understand there's good writers and there's bad writers, and then there's those kids that you can move up the chain a little bit.
Yeah.
Giving them skills and helping them practice skills that will improve their writing is much more beneficial than saying you have to have 1,500 words.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make those bubble kids bad writers, because they're going to be so focused on the word count that they're fluffing their piece.
Yeah.
And I've said to kids for years, I'm like, go to the library, and if you can find that every book in the library has the same number of pages, then I'll believe a word count matters.
Yeah. Exactly.
But of
like,
course they
it
don't.
just no. And it's like some of the books that I've been reading this summer. I say books plural. I've read one book this summer.
But you've read
but
it
it's
twice,
like some of the chapters in it are 2 pages long, and those are the best chapters.
Right.
And it's like the length doesn't matter. Like, don't be shoving so many characters in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of went off on a rant, but
and honestly, you went the word count. I was gonna go the character route, honestly. So we basically had the same lesson here: is students, if you're writing, or teachers, if you're assigning writing, get out of the way and let the writing happen. Let the ideas flow onto the paper. And I know that is very difficult for some kids, and that's okay. Those are your kids that need extra help. Those are your kids that need story starters. Those are your kids that need graphic organizers. Like, that's going to happen. But then there's kids that are just going to go. And when you give a word count limit, those kids are going to stop. Some of them will. Some of them will stop writing because they've hit their word count, which diminishes their, you know, like, when you think of 2 of the most successful writers in the history of literature, you know, you could argue you're thinking of Stephen King and J.K. Rowling, you know, that those 2 are very widely known.
It's funny that you said that too, because when you said that, I was like, he's probably going to ask me. And those are the first 2 that came to my mind.
Right. You know, but it's like the Harry Potter books get longer and longer after each one. And Stephen King he's written short stories, but he also writes 1,000-page novels. And that's okay. Like, get out of the way and let the writing happen. And so I'm absolutely with you on that one. I feel like this one was, we have to have this many people, and we have to have this many scenes. And it felt too much. Like, I feel like we were watching the the version before things were cut.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now pare this down. And I mean, 90 minutes is your goal. This isn't 111. Like, you could have trimmed 11. You could have trimmed 21 minutes out of this.
Yeah.
And it would have been a tighter film and have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have gotten away. You easily could have cut out Deputy Hicks and everything she had to offer, and you wouldn't have missed anything in this. You could have gotten rid of the publicist, and nothing would have changed in this movie.
No.
Right? You could have cut it down to one film kid, and nothing would have changed in this movie.
Not at all.
You know, you could have gone with no-name actors as the deputies outside, and nothing would have changed in this movie. You still could have killed them.
Yeah.
You just maybe killed them off screen.
Yeah.
You know, like, you could have cut them. You couldn't really have cut Jill's mom out because she's a teenager and needed a parent. But,
right.
She didn't have to die.
No.
Because Jill killed her. She even comments like, no, that had to happen. No, it didn't.
Had to go. Like, that's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that one. 100% is like, no one enough is enough. Especially from this duo who had made 3 very successful Scream movies at this point. They know what they're doing. And Wes Craven had said, I'm not coming back to make another Scream movie unless the script is as good as the first one. Mm-hmm. Well, he, again, was up in his age and apparently was just capable of making poor decisions. But that's okay. Rest in peace, Mr. Craven. I do love you. He's the creator of Nightmare on Elm Street. So Freddy Krueger is his invention. Love me some Wes Craven. Well, I have an idea that might help streamline things a bit for us.
All right.
I was going to text you, but I thought, no, we'll just talk about it. We are always wanting to fill what we need to fill, right? And we're always like, do you have something? Do we want to shuffle, etc. So here's my idea. Why don't we rotate? Okay. Why don't we rotate through where we do, and I'll kind of keep tabs, I think. Where we'll rotate through that. We'll do a week where I bring a movie to the table. We do a week where you bring a movie to the table. We do a week where we cross a movie off the list.
Okay.
And then we just do a shuffle.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of the movies that we've shuffled across, neither one of us necessarily would have brought to the table, like Dust Devil.
Right.
I would have never brought Dust Devil to the table. And I know you wouldn't have. But, or even like The Reading, I didn't even know about that movie, but you found it and brought it to the table. So I'm thinking that'll give us, most months have 4 weeks. Now that school's going to be starting up, realistically, that's what we're looking at is probably 4 episodes a month, to where that gives us a nice rotation. And then of course we got 2 more Scream movies, but those will be the movies I bring to the table, you know, with Miss Sunshine over here. So, next time, I think when we do Scream 5, we might switch seats and I'll let you run the show. This is your 4th episode and it's co-pilot.
Yeah.
You can do your diligence and actually.
You're driving next time, Ella.
Yeah, it's time. Huh? You sit here and you talk.
That's scary.
Well, what were these movies?
She'll be sick next time.
It's a horror podcast, Ella. It's supposed to be scary.
These movies aren't that scary, though.
I know they're not that scary. You really haven't seen a scary movie yet.
I mean, when I watched the first one with my friends, one of them screamed.
Yeah,
but it wasn't even scary.
But yeah, that scared you. That startled you. But yeah, you really haven't seen much. Did you? We watched Happy Birthday to You together, didn't we? Yeah, and you liked that one. You were okay with that one.
Me?
Happy Birthday to Me, not Happy Birthday.
That one
to
was just confusing.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
She needs to watch like The Strangers.
I know.
Although she might be crawling into bed with you and Ginny.
Yeah. We'll take our time on some. Yeah, we've got to the point where we're okay with the language, but I think The Strangers would be okay. Like obviously we're not ready for nudity. We're not ready for intimate scenes. But and neither one of these had it, you know, so we'll be okay. But yeah. And so, yeah, are you okay with that rotation?
I'm perfectly fine with that rotation.
Well, Well,
I've been making a list.
What's that?
I've been making a list.
Okay, good. Well, then let's go ahead. Let's look at it as this was my episode to bring to the table. So why don't we do like me, then you, then poster, then shuffle?
Okay.
Okay, so this was me. So now, what do you got?
Okay, so is One Missed Call streaming anywhere?
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Which one?
I didn't know there were multiple.
Oh, yeah.
I have just seen the one on TikTok.
I'm sure you're talking about the remake.
It's a newer one,
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah. Yep. Because it is, it was based on there was a span in the mid 2000s where Hollywood's been out of ideas for a while, but there was a span in the mid 2000s where basically whatever Asia is doing with their horror, we're going to go ahead and just do a remake of it. And so this, I believe, One Missed Call was a remake of a Japanese film, possibly.
Yeah, in 2003.
Yeah. And so that was what we did for horror for a long time. But it worked because that's how we got The Ring. That's how we got The Grudge. One Missed Call, Dark Water. There's all kinds of them. I mean, there are a slew of them. Pulse with Kristen Bell. There was a whole bunch of them that were just really creepy foreign from the Asian market that were like, well, that's really doing well over there.
Yeah.
Let's remake it over here. And so, yeah, One Missed Call. We can do that for sure. 2008's One Missed Call. Perfect. So we will be back next week with the 2008 horror mystery, One Missed Call. Social media wise, you could find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I will say this before we go: the original One Missed Call from 2003, directed by Takashi Miike. Takashi Miike is, you like gore? Yeah, you're gonna get that out of Miike. Some of his stuff is way out there. Like, you watch it and you're like, wow. Kind of scroll through his filmography. Audition is one of it's a fantastic movie. It's long. It's a great movie, but it's constantly in like top lists of like scariest movie ever made.
Okay.
And it's very good, and it's very stomach inducing in some parts for sure. But yeah, so he did it. Audition. What was the other one he did? Ichi the Killer was another one that he's very well known for. That's not so much horror as much as it is just like an action. It's crime. But it follows a psychologically damaged man who's manipulated into assaulting or killing rival faction members of a Yakuza gang, while also being pursued by a sadomasochistic enforcer. So a lot of body horror in this one, a lot of self-mutilation. But it's all practical effects as well. Yeah, so he had really, really done a lot of solid stuff. And he's still working today. But a lot of TV shows and a lot of film over in Japan. So the original One Missed Call is based on that movie. It's a remake of that one. So if they stick to the goriness of it, it could be pretty good. I've not seen it, but I know it is streaming. So we will be back next week to watch One Missed Call. We've got probably maybe one, possibly two more episodes before school starts up, depending on how we schedule our time.
Yeah.
I gotta get the poster out and see what's even on there. I had it out once at Father's Day, but I forgot what was there. So, but yeah. So for another, we can mark. I'm sure Scream's on there. We can mark. Okay, Ella remembers. And so yeah, for another episode of Deducation, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And I'm Ella.
And that's Ella. And we'll be back next week with One Missed Call.